So, we good? We good? All right. So we don't have any slides or anything. We're just going to go for it. And the first thing we want to set this up as is AI can impact education in many ways, positive and negative. And in order to take advantage of AI, we need to be able to use the tools and the technology that AI runs on and uses. So the first thing we're going to do is start by very briefly introducing all of our panelists, and then we'll talk about education and how education for people with disabilities is leveraging and factoring in AI, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we're going to just basically run down the line here and do our introductions, and we'll end up with Sarah at this end.
Good morning, everyone. I am Malumba Clara Mkinga from Malawi, and for the sake of those with visual impairment, I have weared an expensive suit, and I also have some natural hair. I am a young girl with a hearing impairment. I'm a disability inclusion advocate and as well as an inclusive education coordinator working with the emerging public leaders of Malawi.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Conchita Hernandez. I am from the United States. I do work around education, specifically blind and low vision students, multilingual students, and how we can leverage AI in education as a tool to empower students in their everyday life.
Hi, everyone. My name is Steph Nyoni from Malawi. I'm a co-founder of Accessibility Africa Limited. So pretty much what we do is providing education for learners with visual impairment using artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Phyllis Munyi, founder and executive director of Dyslexia Organization Kenya, and a school for children with dyslexia, Rare Gem Talent School, that is based in Kenya and in Nairobi. We teach and train about dyslexia and other invisible learning difficulties. We educate educators about how to identify and support children with invisible learning difficulties. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mildred Domino. I work with the University of Nairobi. We basically offer higher education to all learners, including learners with disabilities. I'll be co-moderating with Bruce this session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Blessing from Zambia. I am with the organization called ZAFOD, which means Zambia Federation of Disabilities Organization. The services provided are advocates, community sensitization, and awareness. I'm also a youth leader. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Trudenik, and I'm from Cape Town, South Africa. I am the research lead at Ingenie, which is Africa's specialized EdTech accelerator program. And Ingenie means engine in isiZulu. And so we don't build products ourselves. We see ourselves as the power behind the builders through evaluation, research, ecosystem support, and acceleration. And we have a brilliant partnership with the MasterCard Foundation, who run the MasterCard Foundation EdTech Fellowship Program. This year, we have 10 organizations that the fellowship is supporting, all of which have inclusion at their core. So whether that's young women, rural youth, or critically persons with disabilities. And so I think at Ingenie, we have a practical vantage point to see what's working, what's being developed, what implementations are breaking, and what design principles are needed for solutions to really take hold in the African ecosystem.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
My name is William Otieno. I'm a special needs educator at Kamboi School for the Deaf, which is a special school in Kenya. And today I'm here as a champion for inclusive education, basically using assistive device technology to enhance teaching and learning in our classrooms. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olesya Valerie. I'm the lead computer instructor with Enable Africa, working in Thika. I'm a young woman with visual impairment with African origin. Today, with the African spirit, I am in a burnt orange African dress with black. And so I'm glad to be here speaking towards artificial intelligence in inclusive education. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sister Jacqueline Akinyi, a Kenyan, and I'm also an inclusive educationist working as a principal in a school in Kenya called St. Lucie Senior School for the visually impaired. For the visually, I am one in white. I'm a religious nun, and with a coat, half coat, which is navy blue. I'm here specifically in partnership with Google and Enable to ensure that we advocate for the bridging gap in education through assistive technology. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Basson. I'm from the Google accessibility team, and we work very closely with Enable and with the three individuals here that you just now heard from to make schools for the deaf, schools for the blind, more accessible with the use of assistive technology. And so to some extent, I know you're saying AI in and AI out, but the digital skills and access to digital technology is a precursor. You can't build something in AI if you don't have computers, if you're blind and don't know how to use computers. So I sort of see this as a first step as we move on to, as well as using some AI relevant technologies for assistance as well. And we do have a 3-minute video about the work that's going on in the schools, and we can cue that up. Actually, it's specifically the schools for the blind, whenever you say.
Thika School for the Blind is a visually impaired learning institute which takes care of learners who have got some vision problem.
We don't give them any special curriculum. It is the same education. So the main area is to equip them with necessary knowledge, skill, and attitudes that they need in life.
In our last lesson, we talked about occupations and jobs people do.
Getting Braille books is quite a big challenge. You cannot just go and buy a Braille book. You will not easily find them in the bookshop.
Getting information was a very difficult thing. Even reading the newspapers and so forth, it was a challenge because you could not access such information.
Very good. One clap for Teddy. Very good.
Enable is an non-governmental organization which was started to provide accessible technology to learners who are visually impaired in Kenya. So the new technology is enabling our learners to get more information.
What am I holding here? A Chromebook. Yes. Why do you think we have brought in these Chromebooks?
To read online.
To read online, another use? You are all right. This is a tool that is gonna help you during your classwork. Are we together? Yes. Are we together?
Yes.
Are we happy?
Yes.
All right.
It has really opened the doors which had been closed. Information which had not been easier to get, we can get it. It has opened the information and taken care of things which we could not get access to before. It really matters to us. It's really a very, very important thing to us.
Are we together? Yes. Are we together? Yes. Very good.
Now, we are doing almost everything online.
It helps us in doing more activities.
We are able to get more information through searching.
In the books, if I'm looking for something, it takes time, but in the computer, I just type and find it.
Whenever the world is moving, everybody to take his or her part to ensure that also people with disability move with the world.
People with visual impairment, with the new technology, given the opportunity, they can do very well.
I have 3 questions. Should I do that now with this side of the table? So you kind of got a sense of what's going on in the schools for the blind. And William, you could describe what's going on, how you're using technology in the schools for the deaf. And so then my question is going to be, so after you describe the schools for the deaf, the question around that is, these are pilots. They're being used in just a number of schools for the blind, 1 school for the deaf, and only in some classrooms. So these are really these could be described as pilots. So from these pilots, what would you describe as very strong positive outcomes? And then what are some cautions or things that did not work as well as you would have wanted? So first you have to give an overview of the deaf schools, and then each of you can give something positive from it, and then cautions for anybody else trying to replicate the same thing.
In our school, that is a deaf school, we have inclusive classroom. Inclusive classroom means we have learners who are deaf, total deaf, and learners who are hard of hearing. So with the assistive device technology, we have been able to improve communication. This is how it works. In assistive device technology that we are using, as the teacher speaks and signs, the words are captured on a screen that is in the classroom, and the learners are able to watch and read what the teacher is saying concurrently with what the teacher is signing. So with this one, our learners have been able to develop their language. They have been able to understand what the teacher is saying. They've also been able to learn signs where there's variance. They can learn the sign together with the words. And this one has made communication in the classroom a greater improvement. Initially, some learners were left behind, such that when the teacher signed something and they don't understand, they were not able to know which word was that or which sentence was that. But now, our learners are able to follow through the conversation. They're able to learn and understand well what the teacher is saying, because they are able to read from the screen that is projected in the class, courtesy of Google and Enable. So what we are doing right now is that we are encouraging other people to also use the same. But the main challenge that we have experienced in this pilot program is that sometimes there is a lack of devices or internet. When there is no power, for example, you will not be able to use the screen if there is no power. If there is no power, you will not be able to use the laptop or the devices. So that is one of the challenges that we've experienced. And hopefully, maybe if it can be running on a solar or something, then we can be able to bridge this gap, because the main objective of this program is to enhance total communication, such that there is no gap between the deaf community and the hearing community, because the deaf community sometimes may feel like they are left behind by what the hearing community are saying. But now when we have the speech-to-text transcriber, the assistive technology that we use in school, the deaf can be able to understand what the hearing are saying in real time. Thank you.
And now moving on to Valerie, and then Sister Jacqueline.
Thank you very much, and I can testify the fact that in the video that we've just seen, the excitement is not just on record. The excitement is at the ground. So students are really excited about the use of assistive technology, especially by the use of the Chromebook laptops in their research, in their note-taking. The students are also so excited that the Chromebook is so fast on internet. So the fact that even our school is having internet everywhere is a good tool to ensure that inclusive education is achieved even at the basic level. So these students are also able to do their research in real time. They're also being able to take their notes as the teacher is concurrently teaching, so they're not left behind at any given moment. This is the time when I say, when I was schooling, because I'm visually impaired, where were these, Sarah? Where were you with this? Because it's really a good thing, and I'm really encouraged because I'm an educator in the assistive technology field, and I feel that the impact that I'm giving to these students is timely, and it's just what we should do in this era. Because the use of AI right now, the use of Gemini, and even the use of ChatGPT is making those students improving their grammar, improving their writing. When they're doing their research, they're able to differentiate so many things. They're able even to translate to different languages even as Kiswahili, so that they can understand very well. So some of the measures that someone can take precaution of is the use of internet throughout. So someone should be equipped by installation of internet at any given moment that you want to use assistive technology, that is especially the use of Chromebook. But I can testify it has gone a mile to improving even the academic performance of our students, our visually impaired students, and most of them are transitioning from the junior school to the senior school and even to the tertiary institutions, which is a great improvement in the inclusion education sector.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Then I actually have another question, but I'll hold that until the end. And that's actually open to everyone. For me, this project is a success once it scales. So we are in 4 schools for the blind. There are 16 schools for the blind just in Kenya. We are only in a number of classes within there just based on the limitation of devices. How do we make this pervasive in Kenya? How do we make it pervasive across Africa? This is schools for the blind and 1 school for the deaf. What about other schools with disabilities? So that's the idea that I'm planting in your head. And if we don't discuss it here, I would love for us to have ongoing roundtables to figure out how do we actually turn this into a much larger program than it is now. But we'll end with Sister Jacqueline here, just out of interest of time.
Thank you, Sarah. Now, just an overview. I want to say that visually impaired, especially the total blind, have found it a little bit hectic, especially when it comes to note writing and even revising for their exams. Because you find that they do the same exams that the regular does. And with Braille books that have just been displayed, it forces the teacher to do the summary and even have one-to-one lesson. So independency is lost. I really want to thank Chrome, Google in collaboration with Enable, because with the coming of the Chromebooks as visually impaired, there are some inbuilt features, especially 2, the screen reader and the voice feedback, that has really eased the idea of the visually impaired learners getting that intake positively, because there is that independency. They are able to do at their own convenience, and they are able to do their research. You as a teacher, you are able to teach and just give them time to revise. An example is literature. You'll find that in literature, they have to read set books. And now with the online accessibility, they're able to do it on their own. And that gives them self-esteem, gives them confidence. And with the current system that we are having in our country, Kenya, where we are transiting from 844 to CBE, where practical skills are more focused, and at the same time, ICT is a support compulsory subject. These really came in time. And we are so grateful because at the end of it, it is the accessibility, it is enhancing the education by bridging the gap. At the same time, it is also helping in learning opportunities. and this is it. So I want to say thank you. The caution that comes in, some have been said, the idea of internet, when it is not fully there, it becomes an issue. Another thing is that being that the grade 9 are transiting on yearly basis, we may request humbly that we have more for the grade 11, grade 12, yeah. But otherwise we are so grateful because it brings inclusivity. And Sustainable Development Goals 4 advocates for inclusivity. And I think that's just amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, and now, excellent comments, excellent overviews. Back to our moderators.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on your experience of education and technology preparation, and your thoughts on AI in your country.
As a young girl with a hearing impairment, education in my area has then been easier for me, as we had no special needs teachers. And we had no specialists who could help me to translate on what was being taught. And looking at the barriers, I had to discover, to work on my own. Despite the challenges, I managed to get a degree without the use of the special needs teachers as well as the translators. Looking back on what I have achieved, I decided to start my own organization so as I can meet the barriers. Well, that's why I had to start a special needs education. Looking back in Malawi, we don't have enough special needs teachers, as a lot of those with special needs don't usually finish school because of no special needs teachers. So that was my passion, to pursue education in special needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And Conchita, could you share some thoughts on the challenges in education and technology preparation and the prospect of AI as part of that?
The issues that are happening right now in AI is, I say this is like an amazing time to be blind because there's so much technology, there's so much happening, it's a big revolution. And so 100 years ago, the education looks very, very different than it does now, even 20 years ago, due to what's available. One of the biggest barriers we are facing is the misunderstanding of AI and the hesitation with AI. So we have had legislation pass in the United States in different areas where they're banning AI completely from schools. And so it's a huge disadvantage to our students, where we're saying our students need it due to, blind students, deaf students, students with mobility issues, with speech delays. And so that has been a really big barrier, trying to have the general public understand the actual uses of AI and why it's so important. And I think the stories that you all are doing here actually help us in the US to be able to make that argument. And so that's one of the biggest issues. The second issue is teaching students how to effectively and ethically use AI in their education. What we are finding is either some students are really hesitant, so they don't use it, or some students are over-relying on it and then not pairing it with skills. So one of the work that I do is teaching students how to effectively use it so that they can continue to build their skills. So for example, Braille, how do we incorporate Braille into the use of AI? Because for our totally blind students, Braille is literacy, and so you miss grammar and spelling and editing if you don't have it. But also we also struggle with access to Braille materials. So how do we pair the instruction so that students know how to use low-tech tools in combination with AI, and how do we use AI in a way that students can continue to build their skills? And we have a lot of students that are multilingual. So AI is a wonderful tool for our students who speak multiple languages to be able to translate, to be able to get their thoughts down. And so supporting them in whatever area that they are doing so that they can build the skills with AI and without AI to continue their education.
Fantastic, thank you. We've been talking about education in a sort of a general sense, but most of the conversation, I think, has focused on sort of lower age levels. But I'd like to have Mildred share some thoughts on the higher education, the universities, the research, sort of that part of education, at least here in Kenya. Some thoughts?
Hi, everyone. It's good to come in after colleagues have spoken about what's happening in Kambui, Thika School for the Blind, and St. Lucie. So I'll begin by sharing a little bit about the education system in Kenya and the whole discussion around special schools and inclusive schools, which then really speaks around the statistics around transition of learners with disabilities to higher learning institution, which those in Kenya and those who work in education sector will agree with me that the levels are fairly low because of challenges that have been discussed by Sarah and the colleagues from the secondary level education. As you may all be aware, university education in Kenya is really now shifting from the special school sort of thing to having inclusive education where everyone learns with the other person. And what then becomes amiss is the systems that are in place to support learners to be fully independent at university level and engage in research, engage in learning comprehensively, because again, after that, we expect that all these learners are going to compete for job opportunities in the job market, which again is not segregated in terms of these are the jobs that persons with disabilities can do, and these are the ones that persons without disabilities can do. So for me, this conversation around inclusive education, I think we need to look at it more in terms of policy vis-a-vis practice, because we do have the sector policy for learners with disabilities in Kenya, but again, the scope is on basic education. So we lose a lot of learners in between basic education and higher education. But I would say that that is gradually changing because of technology. And as we get learners who are from all over the country, when we get students who are not equipped with technology, assistive technology education, then what happens at university level is that students lose almost like a whole semester when they try to play catch up in terms of how do they become independent in their studies. Because, for example, at the School for the Blind, those who use the traditional Braille equipment, the sense is that the Braille would be fitted in a classroom. In the university, you are learning all sorts of units and moving around in the university with peers, then you lose that opportunity to start using a Braille equipment. But it is true that when we receive students, we have those who have no assistive technology knowledge, and we start a whole semester trying to bring them up to speed, to support them, to learn assistive technology, but then the others don't wait for them. So then issues of equity come into play. And when we prepare different learners, for example, we've had a project with equitable to support our students from Faculty of Law with assistive technology and give them the softwares and hardwares for learning, which has been quite successful because after they finish, then the law students proceed to Kenya School of Law. Again, in the courts, you will not be allowed to really use the Braille equipment, but you have to defend your clients as a lawyer. So really, the space for AI and tech in higher education, we cannot really fail to speak about it in research. How do you produce your research, navigate the research based on the required procedures? And we have AI coming through in terms of image description. You have alternative text so that you're able to navigate the resources and produce knowledge, because at the university you are really not just reading, but also you're becoming a researcher and producing knowledge that is supposed to solve many problems in the world, because that's the reason why we all get to education. So I'd stop there, but also to pause us to really think about interventions And how then do we make sure that transition for learners with disability is possible, that we don't have 1,000 learners who are visually impaired, but at the university you end up with 2 learners, or you have learners not taking the STEM courses like engineering, technology, mathematics, because they were not prepared at lower levels, and then now you lose them. Or then in the job market, because I know most of us here also work at the intersection of education and employment. We all agree that without education, then employment becomes problematic, because there would be the very basic requirements that everyone needs to be employed in different sectors of the economy.
I'm representing those with the invisible learning difficulties. I believe all of us here, we have seen children who with visible learning difficulties, but majority of the learners in our schools have invisible learning difficulties like dyslexia, children who cannot be able to read, and they are growing, they have been exposed to education but still cannot access reading. How can AI help them to achieve reading and compete in the same field like the others? We are talking about those who have dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, or other neurodivergent that are available, that are there in school, representing a huge number. We may have a school that has no child with probably with visual impairment because they are put together in a special school. But in every class, there is a child who has difficulties with reading, but they are not being accommodated. How can AI help them? Tools like speech to text, text to speech, being read for, or readers and scribers. These are the accommodations that these children can help, and AI is helping a lot. However, there is a challenge in our country, and I believe maybe in other countries, that some in the school environment, if a child is found with a gadget, has been for a long time considered that is cheating in exam. But this can be, with the digital accessibility and allowing that there is no need now having a scribe in person to do that reading for the child, but the text can be, there are tools and that can help this child access these tools. So the challenge again we have is awareness about these learning difficulties with the teachers, because we still have children who are being labeled lazy, stupid, called names and all that, not because they choose not to learn or to access to be able to read, but people think that a person who does not have a visible disability may only be stupid. They are not be able to read because they are lazy or they are stupid. There's need for awareness, and from there, the teachers are aware about it. They will now seek to how to help this child, and this is where the AI intervention comes in. So we need to have this conversation in our schools. Accommodation during exams is also very important, because these accommodations we find in our country today, because of having this learning neurodivergent being recognized in the National Council for Persons with Disability, there is now, once assessment is done, the child can get this access. But that is not available in all sections, because all teachers are not aware that these children can get this access or accommodations with digital AI, scribers, somebody who can read for them or spell for them. And there's need for that awareness, and again, support from the organizations that can help this. For only these few children in every school, maybe in one class there is 1 or 2 or 3 who need maybe a scriber or these gadgets or these tools to help them. So there's need for that. The awareness is lacking, and that's what needs to be enhanced, and also provision for these gadgets, or the AI and the government and the teachers to allow these children to use these gadgets and AI in class. Thank you.
Fantastic. We heard from Alumba about her experience in Malawi, and now we're going to hear some different perspectives from the same country. Your thoughts?
Thank you for the space to put in my thoughts. For me, my great interest is what happens next after we gather, discuss, and do policies. What then are we supposed to do to make sure that what we're discussing is truly implemented? So, per our work at Accessibility Africa, we are using the blind classroom, a technology which we developed to assist learners with visual impairments to learn. So pretty much just a small background why I thought of jumping into this space, because from a personal experience, my grandfather was visually impaired. In the ghetto where we're staying in Mchangautua, one of our friends who were going to school together with stopped going to school because simply the school didn't have special need teachers, as Clara said, and that has been a challenge for a lot of learners in Malawi. So the blind classroom, in short, is more of a voice-based AI-powered learning system designed for the people who are visually impaired. So learners are put on a headset with a microphone. There's a small keyboard for navigation, and the AI-powered teacher learns on a computer. So can talk to, the teacher can talk to them. They talk back to each other. So in that way, learning becomes more accessible on the national curriculum. Because what we noted that when we were doing, as part of our research, we went into one of the schools, it's called Chilanga School for the Blind in Malawi. So we went into the class just to experience firsthand feeling of what really happens when these learners are in class. So you could find that the teacher's given a minimum maybe 45 minutes for a period, and at that time the teacher's against the time to go and teach into another class because teachers are few. So we're talking to, I think to do with teacher to student ratio. So the teacher is lashing for the 45 minutes to go and teach into another class. So meaning that if there's a learner who is struggling into getting a concept, that learner will still be left behind. So after seeing all this, we came up with this. We said when we go to a school, we provide these resources. They are in the laboratory. So that means that if a child didn't get anything in class, maybe the time was limited, can go into the laboratory and educate him or herself at their own pace, at their own time. So we tried in Chilanga School for the Blind in Kasungu, and interesting is, when we were in the classes, I came across one learner by the name Peter. So Peter was struggling to get these concepts, not because he can't get the concept, but the teacher is lashing against the time. So when we introduced the software at the school, we found Peter being on the system more and more, and Peter improved the way he was performing. You know, so it's a simple thing we can just plug and play in other nations. I mean, if there are gadgets somewhere, we could come and put in the software just to make sure that all learners in Africa are progressing at a better way. So my interest mainly is, after we gathered here, after we discussed, let's put also much resources into making sure that what we're discussing is truly being implemented in the actual school. So that's my take for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come over here and ask Blessings to share her thoughts.
So for me, first of all, I forgot to tell you that I'm a graduate. I have a degree in community development and social welfare. And my thoughts on AI are not just Zambia. As I'm here, I'm also speaking on behalf of Africa. We should think that today, as we speak, there is a child with a cry of an education in the village, somewhere in a typical village where a wheelchair cannot move, where a mother cannot carry her child on her back, taking that child to school. First of all, assistive devices are the shortage. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, there are youths without wheelchairs. There are youths without technology-assistive devices. So, for AI, if AI is spread all over Zambia, including the villages and Africa at large, this will transform from negative to positive. In my case, when I started education, the first barrier were my parents. Yeah, sorry to tell you this, Mom, but this is the reality. My late father and my mother, they were overprotective and overloving. They thought if I go to school, people would be laughing at me. But hey, I was very, very stubborn. I told them every day I want to go to school. And I started by writing my tribe name, which is Banji, B-A-N-J-I, on the ground. Yes. And after being stubborn for a long time, the friend to my mother used to run a preschool. That is where I started. Then I started my grade 1. The first day I went there, everyone came out of the classes watching me. Why? Because at that school, I was the only one with a disability. Some people asked, is she going to manage? Some told my parents, why are you troubling yourself? Then in my classroom, a bigger challenge came. I couldn't hold a pencil. I used to learn and concentrate when the teacher is speaking. Some days could pass without writing something on the book, not because I did not want to, but because there was no one to help. Some friends would tell me, I'll write for you later. And that letter never came. I'm happy that I had the passion to learn. Now, I want everyone to just think about it, where a friend told you to say, I'm tired, I'll write for you later. Meanwhile, you know what to write on that activity. But just because you are limited, that used to hurt me. But I would hide my pain through the smile and say, okay, if I cannot write, I have the brain. I'm going to use my brain as my memory card, as my storage. Then during my junior secondary, I was helped with a laptop because the physiotherapist discovered to say I could type on the phone. I could write a message, a button phone. That's how they discovered to say I could use a laptop. But by then, AI wasn't there. The only thing I knew on the laptop was to use Microsoft Word. Though it was a challenge, the school where I was had no electricity. So if I use my laptop today, I'll give my teacher, who used to stay far away from the school, and I'll wait for him to bring the laptop the next day. This was a challenge. I'm slow in typing because I use one hand. I use the right hand to hold my left hand to control my movement as a person with cerebral palsy. So when I heard about AI, I did not just think about myself. I thought about someone who is in Zambia, in a village, someone who is in Africa, in a village. Parents are poor, cannot afford a laptop or afford a smartphone. Even if they heard about AI, but where do they start from? Because these parents already having a child with cerebral palsy, to say so, is equal to have 10 children at once and to take care of them. So my take on AI, I'm sure if AI doesn't just end in urban areas, but it should also reach the village, not only giving them phones and laptops, but also giving them trainings on AI. Not only persons with the disabilities, but also caregivers, because there are some who cannot hold, but they have very caring caregivers. I'm here speaking to you today because I had a mother who never gave up on me. And also I had some few individuals who believed in me and believed in my capability. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And Blessing's mother is actually here with us. Do you understand?
Yeah, you can stand up and say hi to everyone.
Thank you. Fantastic. How do we take that passion and bring it to the villages? How do we, or bring the technology to the villages, support this passion? And we need to power and empower the innovations, the developments, this whole ecosystem. Do you want to share some thoughts on sort of how do we scale, and we'll kind of come back to Sarah's original thoughts?
The potential for AI and inclusive education is really exciting. It's already happening, but it assumes certain conditions, which I think Blessings has so aptly described. You know, it assumes electricity supply, and we know with the International Energy Agency, they estimate around 600 million people on the African continent are without electricity. And the ITU says that in terms of internet usage, we're seeing rates of around 38% across the African continent, which varies greatly globally, where I think we see estimates of about 68% of internet usage, and that rate is even higher in wealthier countries. So I think that there are so many. Before we can meaningfully have discussions on AI, we need to really ensure that the infrastructure is in place on the continent. We need to be ensuring that costs are not overly prohibitive. Technology that is requiring paid licenses, lots of data, intensive teacher training and maintenance updates and so on. Even if that tool has been designed to be accessible, if it's not affordable, it's not accessible. And I think there's lots of really exciting initiatives that have grown on the continent and have been co-designed with people with disabilities that are mitigating some of those issues. I think of one of the organizations in our cohort, Buddy AI, and they support its WhatsApp bot style of engagement with learners, and it's happening on a low data platform that many users are already, aware of. There's not major onboarding learning curves. Of course, we have the issues of smartphones and the uneven distribution of those as well. But I think there are ways to design with accessibility at the forefront and accessibility in every way. And I think that we are seeing that kind of innovation. I think that all of us gathered here today really need to ensure that that's the kind of innovation, one that really fits the African context, that really fits learners with disabilities, and that those are not afterthoughts, those are not elements that are retrofitted after the fact. I think that's really, really critical. I think, if I may, there are, as much as I'm excited by the power of AI in this space and innovations I'm seeing, I think there are some risks as well. So, a lot of these large language models are training on data that's, largely Western, neurotypical, English, wealth, and I think that can reinforce some stereotypes and can be potentially harmful. And I think that as a continent, we have a big role to play in putting safeguarding measures in place and ensuring that we are training data sets on really locally relevant and contextual information. I also think that there's risks of data, and I think a data breach for learners with disabilities can really impact their lives, and so it becomes a safeguarding issue. And then there's equity, and I think that there is the possibility for AI to more deeply entrench some of the inequalities we see in the education space. But I also feel very powerfully that those of us in the room today, developers, policymakers, funders, have the power to really set the scene and set us on a direction in which we are ensuring that when we speak about accessibility, we truly mean accessibility. We mean accessibility that works in the constraints infrastructurally that we have on the African continent, that is co-designed with learners with disabilities. And I think then that we could be in a positive place, and I think we're at exactly the right kind of place to be having these discussions and leveraging these opportunities.
Thank you so much. Starting with the education, we came all the way around and got into technology, and Catherine just got us thinking more about the sort of sophisticated balance we need to strike between the pros and the cons, the benefits and the costs and the challenges. Knowing all that you know from all the many hats that you wear, Sarah, final thoughts on this space?
There are some issues that seem to be pervasive across Africa, and some of them are obviously more deeply entrenched in rural areas than in urban areas. And so clearly one of my takeaways is solutions that we come up with in the West, which is also complicated, are not necessarily, indeed, are not going to be suitable for Africa in its current stage. So first of all, we all need to keep that in mind. So, and that is also a big argument for why more of this design and development and planning needs to happen in an African context and not imported. Many reasons we have for things not to be imported, but this is one important one, as in what gets imported is just going to be largely the wrong thing and not suitable for the conditions. There's a whole range of disabilities, so indeed in terms of our initiative here, the focus has been on blind schools, deaf schools. We've heard a lot about other issues. We've heard a lot about other disabilities that are under-resourced and not getting enough attention. We've heard a lot about stigma. So I think we have learned a lot. I think we've opened up a lot of questions. We haven't necessarily come up with the answers, so maybe we'll leave that as an exercise for another time. And also all of the interesting issues that get raised around AI. And I think it was also very interesting that it was put into the context that even if there are concerns and risks and so on in the milieu of people with disabilities, a lot of those things need to be rethought. And it does a lot of good. I mean, and we need the guardrails and so on. So I'm encouraged by all I've heard here, by the commitment, by just the fact that we have an audience like this here, and I'm hoping that we can collectively come up with some suggestions. And so we had talked about this as a roundtable. With time constraints, we aren't actually sitting and doing a full day of brainstorming, but maybe that should be an exercise for over the rest of the year, so we don't just walk away with we've learned more and we have more questions, but actually we do a little bit solutioning. And so a personal promise that when we come to Inclusive Africa next year, we're a little bit closer to the answers that we want to get to.
Fantastic. The last words from this session. So what is your call to action? What would you want and suggest and hope for the next, the wish list or whatever you want to share about this topic from where you sit here in Kenya?
The conversation has obviously highlighted a lot of issues that are very context specific, and the realities around technology that we have which is more of imported, and the infrastructure in the continent, which then limits who has access to technology and who doesn't have access, where quote-unquote education is sort of becoming a privilege, then the question then becomes employment then doesn't become a reality if education is a privilege. I am stuck with the reflection around the support systems, like what ideally looks like support for a learner with disability. Listening to the story of Blessing and the many people who were around her to help her get through and navigate education. I think the conversation around AI, technology, education shouldn't just be about innovators, shouldn't just be about policymakers, but it should be the community where learners live and belong, because it means if someone drops the ball, then a child with disability will not make it to the classroom, because it is in the classroom that they will meet the teacher. It is in the classroom that they will meet the service providers. It is in the policy room that decision about budgets will be made. But who sits in the policy room to decide how much is going for inclusive education? For example, in Kenya, we discuss about capitation every other day. Who sits in that room to do the costing, that this is what it takes to give education to a child in grade 1? This is what it takes for a researcher with disability to start their research and produce the research outcomes. I mean, it's a whole ecosystem that we must start rethinking. We must co-design with people with disability so that we don't have a situation where the hardwares and softwares are not compatible because you have to contact someone in the US to give you the code to use in your technology device and get what you need to do. So really, for me, my call to action is us to think about the stakeholders and to give them their rightful place. If it's a caregiver of a child with disability who truly understands what it means for this child to participate in education, then we need that voice in a policy discussion. We need the voices of learners with disability in the policy room where budgets are being determined. Like now in Kenya, we are just about to have our budget in the next week, but the question is, how was that process consultative? Was it just about the Ministry of Education and the few people who are privileged to sit in that space so that we don't sustain the problems around inclusive education, and also thinking through the different layers of education. How is it for a child with disability to go to an ECD center, early childhood development center? What does play look like? How does technology make play be meaningful for this child so that they all grow not only in one direction of mainstream education, but also building and nurturing talents? And who gets to the university? Who gets to the workplace? Because again, if we shut down our ears to this conversation, then we will be coming back to lament about the same problem as a continent of Africa. But Africa, as we know it, is a continent of opportunity. It's a youthful continent. It's a very resourceful continent. But I believe we are not tapping into the potential of our continent because of the gaps that we have been able to recycle year in and out. I'll leave it at that. And thank you very much for listening.
Please join me in thanking all of the panelists.